Morning, children. Today I am going to take up a lesson from class 9 literature Beehive, a poem titled as The Legend of the Northland by Four Carey. Well, children, you may ask the purpose of, I mean, the purpose of the poet to write this poem. First of all, you'd like to ask, sir, what is legend? A legend is a historical but traditional story which is meant for some lesson, but there is no authenticity of such, story. So, this poem has been written to instill a sense of kindness, charity, generosity among the children. This is a very didactic, poem. The Legend of the Northland has a lesson to learn. Though the poet doesn't believe in the authenticity of this poem, yet she narrates this poem just to instill a sense of kindness, charity, and generosity in the children. Well, the poem begins like that. There lived a little woman in a cottage in Northland. Obviously, Northland is a place which is very cold. The days are very short, the nights are very long there. That's the reason why there people have to, spend night. Sometimes they cannot sleep the whole night, so they feel, discomfort. So there lived a little woman in a cottage in Northland. She was baking delicious cakes on her hearth. At that time, Saint Peter, during his temporary stay and visit to a place, as he was a saint and his work was to preach all over the world. While preaching all over the world, he went on fasting. He didn't eat anything for several days and has therefore become weak and pale. Having been tired of walking all the day and preaching, he decided to just take rest. Suddenly he saw the cottage and reached there. As he was tired and hungry and saw the woman baking cakes, he requested her to give one of the cakes she had baked as he was hungry. She started, baking cakes. Another cake she baked is small in size, but each time she baked a cake, she felt the cake was too big to give away. So she, went on baking a smaller and smaller cake, and ultimately she made a paper thin cake like a wafer meant to be given to St. Peter. Yet she saw that it was too big to give away. And then she realized that the cakes that she was baking for others appeared or seemed to be too big to give away, and the cake that was meant for her appeared too small in comparison. Thus, she finally refused to give St. Peter anything to eat. As St. Peter was very hungry and tired, he became quite very hungry and tired. He became quite angry, and thus he cursed her. He said that this woman didn't deserve to be a human being and live in such a comfortable cottage. Therefore, he turned her into a bird. He just said that she would have to construct her own house like a nest on a tree, boring, holes on hard wood. And therefore, all of a sudden, saw the woman turning into a bird and flew from her from the chimney of her house. And thus this story teaches us the lesson that we should never be unkind to anybody. We should be kind and generous, and we should sympathize with everyone. Some of the lines I would like to read for the children. Away, away in Northland, where the the hours of the day are few, and the nights are so long in winter that they cannot sleep then through. The poet introduces this poem just by saying that this is the story from a place called Northland. Obviously, it is a very cold place. And as the days are very short and the nights are very long, it is difficult for the people over there to sleep the whole night, where they harness the swift reindeer to the sledges when it snows, and the children look like bear's cub in their funny furry clothes. The poet continues to describe the people of Northland. He says that when the snow falls, the people drive their reindeers, and the children put on woolen clothes, heavy woolen clothes, and that make them look like bear's cub. They tell them a curious story. I don't believe it is true, and yet you may learn a lesson if I tell the tale to you. Oh, obviously, the poet says that he has been told by his grandmother such a story, such a legend, though she doesn't believe. She doesn't believe in the authenticity of the story, yet she wants to narrate it so that children could learn a lesson from that. Once, when the good Saint Peter lived in the world, he went on preaching, and in the course of his preaching, he had to fast, he had to go without food, and he was tired. Therefore, he came to the door of a cottage in traveling round the earth, where a little woman was making cakes and baking them on the hearth. And being faint with fasting for the day was almost done, he asked her to give him a piece of cake. But she baked a very small cake. Before giving it away, she stopped to think whether it was too big to give away. So she started to make a smaller and smaller cake. But each time she baked a cake, it appeared too big for her to give to somebody else. And thus, ultimately, she prepared a wafer like, a very paper thin cake that she decided to give it to. But eventually, she decided to keep it to her and didn't give it to Saint Peter. And this resulted into the anger of Saint Peter. Peter cursed her, and by saying that she didn't deserve to remain a human being. She had to construct her own house like a bird, and she had to find her own food in the jungle, and therefore he turned her into a small bird. Thus, this story is full of lesson and teaches us the, morale that we should always be kind, generous, and sympathetic to everyone. A man without sympathy and generosity is just to be cursed. Even God cannot forgive him. Thank you very much, children. Thanks a lot.